So the organization that I work for is called PA Foundation. We are involved in several initiatives. So one of them is called the C19 Response Coalition, where we work on multilingual access, credible information here in Canada. We've been fortunate to partner with various community organizations, including UBC ACAM, to ensure that materials are getting out in Chinese, Tagalog, as well as Vietnamese. The second project that we're working on is called the Chinese Seniors Grocery Delivery Program outside of Vancouver's Chinatown. And that one is delivering for free groceries to the Chinese seniors. We wanted to ensure that they could get culturally appropriate groceries that they needed instead of perhaps risking going outside during the lockdown. The racialization of the disease was something that I was really trying to bring into the media spotlight in terms of how a lot of the hallmark steps of racializing something bad in society was happening. So it was like the China virus, the Wuhan virus, kind of associating masks with like, oh, you're diseased. And I think all of this played into actually North America's like response and lack of adequate response, because it was treated as something that was foreign, that wasn't applicable to us as white society. Time and time again, we're seeing that white society, I would say, and we've seen this through Orientalism and all of these type of notions of assigning what they perceive other cultures as. In the Vancouver context, it's been interesting to see the differences between how racialized people, especially people from Asia, reacting to the virus so early, and yet government and institutions not taking that as serious. For me, I was on the media beat for this since mid-January, and one critique that I've had since then is actually language access, because something that I realized in working with community members is that a lot of folks that access WeChat or have connections back to folks in Asia, where there was such a quicker spread in the early days of the virus, they were already prepared and they already had a lot of plans on how to keep each other safe and community safe. And yet that wasn't really translating over here. So a lot of community members were hearing actions in Asia in the latest news, and at the same time hearing official provincial and federal government of Canada news kind of saying that we shouldn't worry. And I think that just creates a sense of confusion for a lot of folks, because while they're living here, their social and perhaps other ways of connection is tied to Asia, where they're also getting a different source of information. And I think that's a really strong vulnerability for places like North America. And I think that something that the government can do better and other institutions can step in on is really providing language access so that people can access credible information themselves and discern, and I would say learn and also assess what steps they feel is the most appropriate for themselves and also for their community members. I did see a lot of harm just in the disinformation on how local authorities and institutions were going to take action. It's been a really challenging time for society, not only because of the pandemic, but also the killing of George Floyd and other calls for increased and actual change around how we think about Black lives as society. And in the context of the pandemic, even before that, what are we doing all of this for, especially in community work and further in community response work, if we're stressing ourselves on productivity versus thinking about it as a long-term form of care and ability to care for each other. And it's something that I still hold true, and I think something even more important now when everybody's being stressed in various ways in their daily and professional and other lives. Something that I've been really heartened by is seeing how the Chinese Seniors Grocery Delivery Program that PA Foundation is a part of really came about, because it's unbelievable to me that we were able to pull together a project and start deliveries basically within 2 weeks from scratch. And that was only possible because of the strength of the community network and trust with all the collaborators we had on that project. On that project was Yarrow Intergenerational Society for Justice, who work with Chinese seniors, Bao Bei Brasserie, a restaurant in Chinatown, Van City Credit Union, and a handful of community advocates and organizers that we just got together and started chatting about what we were going to do. And everybody just broke out and into their specializations, roped in their networks, and we pieced it all together. And that program is still running. And we think that that type of model is a form of mutual aid of various collaborators that typically don't necessarily align. That's where I would encourage folks to think about how we can think creatively on mutual aid as a concept, various folks stepping up in ways that they know how. But for me, the creativity resides in how we actually relate and work together to achieve something together for the community. That was something that I was and continue to be inspired by